Highline is probably one of my favorite places in Manhattan. Now, if you're not familiar with the Highline is an elevated park in the west side of Manhattan. We're gonna share some pictures with you in this video so you can see what we're talking about if you're not familiar with the Highline, but it's literally an elevated park that's gorgeously landscaped above Manhattan. You're literally walking alongside like actual buildings. And I honestly think it's a very, very unique experience that everyone should do at some point in Manhattan. Now, where did the Highline come from? The Highline was never intentionally built to be used as a park. It actually is an abandoned train track, hence the High Line, like it's an elevated train line. So if you walk on the Highline and you look down at like where you're walking, you'll actually see the train tracks. It's really, really cool because it's like a piece of history of Manhattan that a lot of people didn't even realize that so many trains ran through the city as regular trains because it was before subways existed. Why was this train elevated? So not to be a little bit morbid, but the train was elevated, this train in particular, because the trains used to run on ground level, but there was so many people getting hit by the trains and it was becoming a huge problem in New York City that they started to elevate it. So hence the Highline. That's where the name comes from, which I think is kind of like a cool story. But today it's a beautiful park overlooking the west side of Manhattan, and you get views of the waterfront, you get views of the city. So it's really cool to just like spend an afternoon there on a really nice day. Now, the Highline can get really, really crowded for two reasons. Tourists want to see it, and I wouldn't say it's beautiful. And two, it's free. Sometimes New York City can be an expensive place. There's a lot of people who, if they're looking for something free to do in an afternoon, will go on the Highline because they don't have to pay any money to do it. And it's fun. It's amazing. It's a really good time. So I don't really blame them. And when I first came to New York City and I was pretty much poor and had no money, I would go on the Highline all the time because it was like an afternoon of doing something, and like I would grab a coffee if I wanted to splurge on a coffee, and that was like my afternoon. I 100% get why people love being on the Highline. Even to this day, I still love the Highline. There's two ways that you can get around crowds. Either go at a time where the weather isn't completely gorgeous out. It's not like very, very warm, or it might be a little bit colder, or maybe not the nicest day outside. That's one way. Or two, go on an off day. So like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's probably gonna be less crowded for the most part, unless maybe it's a really, really nice day out, but you're probably gonna have less people than you would on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's for sure. On the north end, it starts in Hudson Yards, and then it goes all the way to the meatpacking district. So that's where it stretches to. So the whole park is made of about 1.5 acres. I think it's 1.45 to be specific. And that's that stretch from Hudson Yards to the meatpacking, vice versa, depending on which way you get on. So how do you get to the Highline? I would say you would go 34th Street. You would get on, like I said, all the way at Hudson Yards. Depending on how you're getting there, you would either have to get off the 7 train in Hudson Yards, walk over to the Highline, or on 8th Avenue, you would get off any of those subway trains that get off on 34th Street, and then you would walk over to Hudson Yards on about 10th Avenue. On the southern end of the Highline, you can get on at 14th Street, so you can get off there all the way on the west side, of course, and then you can just get on the Highline there. There's a couple different entrances to get on over there. On the Hudson Yards side, you can definitely take advantage of the mall. Also, you can kind of just like spend some time window shopping there if you don't want to spend any money, or grab a quick bite to eat. Now, the Hudson Yards Mall is pretty big and there's a lot there, but it could be a little bit pricey. Now, there are some kind of like cheap eats, like some more inexpensive food there, but there's going to also be a lot of fine dining there. So just keep that in mind on the Hudson Yards side. On the 14th Street meatpacking district side, you can go to Chelsea Market, which also has some kind of more inexpensive eats, maybe a little bit more options than Hudson Yards would have in that category. And also there's like some coffee shops and like shops on either side, to the Hudson Yards side or the Chelsea Market side, which is the meatpacking side on 14th Street. That's just a quick overview of the Highline. Now, I'm going to create an actual tour video of the Highline at some point where the camera's going with me to the Highline, and I'll kind of walk you guys through some of the cool spots and things that you should see there. But this is just a very general guide. So if you guys have anything to add or any other questions about the Highline, feel free to leave it in the comments, because as always, I'd love hearing from you guys.